All right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the technical issues. Welcome to episode 23 of the Robbie Basel Show. I am your host, Robbie Basel. Sorry if you heard the background noise there, real quick. And we have a lot to talk about today. So stop with the usual boring YouTube type intro and say hello, YouTube, and move on. So we have a lot to talk about. We're opening tonight's stream also, like, we had, like, a link issue. It connected to a streaming service I didn't have. I don't know why this happened. I don't know. Besides the fact, we have a lot to talk about. We're starting off with the MLB Trade Deadline, which is next week. Early next week, we have the MLB Trade Deadline, and to start off the insanity, we had a couple very interesting trades that I'm gonna talk about quick, and then I'm gonna give you a couple names to watch out for to be traded within the next 72 hours ish. We're gonna begin with the Lucas Giolito trade. So Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez, I think that's how you say it, were traded to the Angels for two prospects. The Angels seemingly want to go all in, yet they have to deal with the Angels, not the excuse me, they deal with the Astros and the Rangers. So that'll be a fun situation for them. But Lucas Giolito's had an okay season with the White Sox, been very up and down. I'm very interested to see how he fits with Anaheim. I mean, he's a great starter. He'll fit well in the rotation. They need pitching depth, but Lucas Giolito is an interesting ask. And Ronaldo Lopez is probably going to be like a bullpen or long innings type of guy. He's always been like that with the White Sox. I'm interested that the Angels didn't go after Tuki Tucson again because I think he played with them. I don't know. Oh, no, they had Julio Tehran. So I'm interested that they didn't go for Tucson because they wanted to go with one inconsistent starter. Why not go after two of them? So that's the idea there. But there's another interesting trade today that happened with Kendall Graveman getting traded to the Astros again, this time for Corey Lee. Now, I'm very high on Corey Lee. I think he's a lot of potential. And I didn't think he was really going to bring it out with the Astros. He now goes to the White Sox, who have a very old Yasmani Grandal. And he may be called up in the next, I think, 12 months. So Corey Lee, I think, is a good get for the White Sox. Well, they lose Kendall Grave. I believe it was Kendall Graveman getting traded to the White Sox from the White Sox to the Astros. And we had another move today. Yeah, Lance Lynn getting traded to Dodgers with Joe Kelly in exchange for some prospects. Now, the White Sox are really dedicated to selling, and I'm one of the few people that are hesitant about this idea from the White Sox. Not because the White Sox are bad. Look at everyone else in that division. It's one of those scenarios where nobody is really that good. And if you heat up for like a brief 2 weeks, win 11 of 14 or something crazy like that, you can really immediately throw yourselves in the first place or in the mix. Now, granted, the White Sox have had a bad year. But it's weird that they didn't stay put and try to do it again next year. Granted, I predicted these guys to win the division. That's why I'm a little more frustrated by this. But I'm interested to see what they do next. Now, I don't think they're going to sell Luis Robert. I think that's a terrible idea. They might trade Eloy. I think that's a very big possibility. Someone who wants a big power bat with no defense. So that's a possibility. I think I mean, they have a lot of players who could be traded. I'm interested if they see if they keep dismantling the rotation. Now, from the looks of it, I thought if the Angels were going to trade for somebody, it would be Dylan Cease. And either the asking price was too high for Dylan Cease or the White Sox are going to build around him. And we're going to find out if they build around him. And I think they should build around him because Dylan Cease is a talent that in the White Sox rotation, I don't think they've seen in a long time. So probably since the days of Chris Sale with the White Sox. So that'll be an interesting development to see what the White Sox do. But there's another team that people think can sell at the deadline. That is the Cardinals. I'm going to talk about a couple of Cardinals players that you can watch out for to be traded this coming trade deadline. Now, I'm looking at this list from shout out to MLBTradeRumors.com. I follow them for like all the news and stuff on Twitter and their own website. So I'm using some players from their list, and I'm using some other lists. By the way, I had to mention one more trade, and this happened during the Mets game last night, which I was It was a very interesting pitchers duel. Josiah Gray, New Rochelle native, went up against Kodai Senga. It was a pitchers duel for the ages, and then the heavens opened up and it poured rain. I didn't get to see the end of it, but it was a 2-1 showdown. And during the end of the game, pretty much during the rain delay, David Robertson got traded to the Marlins for two teenagers. Now, this is what doesn't make sense. The fact that the Mets may still want to be competitive and they traded their best bullpen piece for pretty much something you won't see for 4 years. Weird direction that the Mets are going. Now, I think they should go trade one of their old starters in Verlander or Scherzer, but I don't think anyone's going to want to take those contracts. So that's why I don't think it's going to happen. But back to the talks about the Cardinals. And the first player I'm going to talk about that I think could be traded, it's going to be two starters, and then there's one big piece that I think could be traded. And my first player I'm talking about, it's a starting pitcher. It's Jack Flaherty. Now, Jack Flaherty has been on the injury list for a lot of the last couple of years, but you can't underestimate the talent that this guy has. Now, people have slept on Jack Flaherty when he first came into the league. He really pitched well with the Cardinals. Now he's had a couple injury plagued years. Now he comes back, looks pretty decent. He still has I think a decent amount of potential. He's a very good right-handed starting pitcher, and I think some teams. I don't know what the Cardinals' asking price is going to be because the NL Central is another one. It's like the same thing as the AL Central because the Central divisions are really bad this year. I'm putting that very lightly. That anyone can go out and win the division other than the Royals and the Pirates. Anyone can still, I think, can still make a run in for it if they play their cards right. But if the Cardinals want to sell, Jack Flaherty would be the first piece to sell. Him or Jordan Montgomery, who was the other starting pitcher that I think they could possibly move. Some people were linked with Giovanni Gallegos. I don't know why, because I wouldn't move Giovanni Gallegos. I think he's the and Jordan Hicks was the other one. Jordan Hicks was possibly linked with a move to the Rangers and the Yankees, according to sources. So I'm very interested to see what the Cardinals do. But the other piece I was going to talk about was Nolan Arenado, because Nolan Arenado has been linked with possible moves as well. This kind of feels like one of the soccer transfers that I get to talk about later on. And Nolan Arenado, the idea of Nolan Arenado possibly being traded, it's hard to grasp. And the reason I say that is Nolan Arenado signed when he got traded to the Cardinals and signed that new deal. You felt like he was going to be there for a long time. You really did. And the fact that he's there and has the possibility of being traded not that far out from making playoff pushes, it really raises the question of what the Cardinals really want to do. Like, they're in the same situation the White Sox are in. It's like, do you sell more? Do you stay put? Because the NL Central is not going to get much better. I don't think next year because you only have to deal with Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee, I think is better than any team in the AL Central, which is hard to grasp a little bit. So it's really a big toss up what direction you go to. And I feel like within the next 24 hours, we should know what either team, either the Cardinals or the White Sox, if they really want to unload or they're just going to unload a little bit, get some value back for the future, and then try to go after it again next year. Now, there was a couple of other interesting ones. And this one is from the Chicago Cubs, sticking with the Central teams, and that's Cody Bellinger. Now, Cody Bellinger has been trade discussions, I feel like, for the last month. Kind of feels like, oh, the Yankees are going after Cody Bellinger. Like the Cubs are going to trade him. I think the Cubs could actually possibly make moves. I mean, granted, they're like slipping down the order in the NL Central, but I don't see why they would move him. Granted, he's on a 1-year deal, so maybe you don't think he's going to come back. But unless you're totally certain, and this is why the Angels didn't move Ohtani because they don't know if they have some certainty that he could possibly come back. If the Cubs are totally certain that Cody Bellinger isn't going to come back, then that's the only reason I would trade him. Because Cody Bellinger is not looking that bad. I mean, the former MVP hit 271 with like an 800 OPS through mid-May, and then he's hitting 317 after his injury. So he's playing well, and he's going to get a good amount of value if they want to trade him. The question is, do they want to trade him? And I don't think so. That the idea that you could trade Cody Bellinger is weird. The Yankees, I bet, would be in the mix for him. I think the Rangers would love Cody Bellinger if they can re-sign him because they have all those big contracts with Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. They'll have to pay some of the other guys soon in Adolis Garcia. And I mean, they have the DeGrom contract as well, even though DeGrom's not playing, which raises the question, how good are the Rangers really? Because without DeGrom, that's another question for another time. But Cody Bellinger being traded is a very interesting dynamic. We have some other names here. A lot of this list is full of Cardinals, White Sox, and then you scroll down the list a little bit here. You see Aaron Savali. Now, the Guardians, I don't know what to think of them because they're a small market team that don't like to pay for big players, and then they scratch that narrative when they re-sign J-Ram. I don't think with the money that's given to like the Guardians own like the Guardians staff, I don't know if you're able to keep a guy like a Savali, Bieber, Quantrill, McKenzie. You have those pieces, and they're all very good. Like those four names I just mentioned are all would fit and pitch well on playoff caliber teams. Like I would take a lot of those guys on the New York Mets. I really would. I bet the Yankees would ask for a couple of those guys, in particular Aaron Savali. So, I mean, he's has sub 4 ERA and just shy of 400 career innings in the big leagues. He has a lot of potential. I think he still has possibly room to grow, even though he's getting a little bit older. He's 28 years old. He's a 2.96 ERA over a few starts this season. His value is going to be there. The question will be, what will the Guardians have as an asking price for Aaron Savali or a Shane Bieber or a Cal Quantrill if they wanted to move him? I don't think they're going to move Tristan McKenzie, but if you have an asking price for those guys, what will that look like? Do they want to go out and move Karen Check? I mean, just as another name to throw out there. So the Guardians are in a weird spot. And then you come up against like players from, there's a couple of Mets here. And then you come up with the guys from the Padres, which will be the last team we talk about as for players who can, as like a couple players who could be leaving. And we'll talk about some buyers and what we could possibly see for them. So the Padres have two interesting pieces, and they're both lefties in Blake Snell and Josh Hader. Now, I think it would be totally stupid to trade Blake Snell. Blake Snell has looked really good. I believe he's one of the lowest ERAs in the National League this year. He's looking like a total stud. Josh Hader, same type of deal. He's always been somewhat reliable as a left-hander reliever. We saw his emergence in Milwaukee for the last few years, and he gets traded to the Padres for, I think it was for Rogers, and if I don't remember if it's anyone else in that trade. So they traded for those guys, and then there's the possibility of them being sold. Like same with Juan Soto. I'll throw Juan Soto into this mix. There is no reason that Blake Snell and Josh Hader should be traded. Juan Soto, the only reason that he would be traded is if the Padres are going to try, or if they get a ridiculously good trade offer. What team do I think can put in an offer like that? Yankees could. I think they could throw in a very reasonable offer. Texas Rangers, I wouldn't be surprised. I've mentioned those two names a lot. You can throw in Houston Astros. I feel like have some decent prospects. But don't be surprised if you want to throw in an in-division team to go after. Maybe the Diamondbacks, if they want to be competitive and go out and pay somebody one day. If they want to pay Juan Soto, maybe they can do that. You want to go to the East Coast, maybe you go out and see. I mean, I was thinking originally the Braves, and that wouldn't make much sense. But I bet there's a good amount of teams that would be interested in Juan Soto. Like if the Angels really want to go in all in, go get Juan Soto. It's that simple. If you want to go in and I feel like the Angels are going to be the new Minnesota Twins. I'll talk about that in a second. So back with the Padres, I think they have to stay put because there's no reason in the future that the Giants are going to be stable And we do not know how good in the future that the Diamondbacks are going to be. The Diamondbacks have a lot of good pieces for the future, absolutely. And they're looking really good. Do you really trust this Diamondbacks team to finish out the season strong in August and September with the lack of experience that some of these guys have? Do you really trust the Diamondbacks? I don't. Not really. I mean, they've been fighting the Dodgers all year. The Giants are emerging out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, proving people wrong that maybe they didn't need Carlos Correa or Aaron Judge to be good this year. Just throwing that out there. But to my point, so let's look at the buyers that for this trade deadline. I'll give you a couple of names for buyers. We've already talked about some sellers, possible sellers. The buyers, I talked about an Angels trade, and I'll speak this about the Angels. There is no reason that the Angels should be going all in because of how much talent that the AL West has. I think the Mariners can make like a move or two and jump back into the mix because that division's kind of like the AL East where it's very somewhat top heavy. Like if we're granted the AL East has no team under 500 right now and the Yankees are in last. Do what you will with that information. Boston's still in the mix and yet Boston could possibly be selling pieces. That's another team I'm interested in seeing selling is Boston. But the buyers, the Angels have proved that they want to be buyers. And you go out and get a guy like a Lucas Giolito and a bullpen arm and Ronaldo Lopez. What else do I think they can do? I mean, mentioned Juan Soto. I mean, if you want to go out and name some other pieces, like I have a weird feeling that they would trade Joe Adell for somebody, like somebody big, like Juan Soto for like Joe Adell and something crazy. They would do something like that. But the Angels, you have to imagine are buying Texas possibly as well. National League, you have to look at the teams that are legit. You said all the Dodgers wanted to buy a little bit. I'm interested to see the path that Milwaukee goes. Because if you look at the NL Central and the Brewers are a game and a half better than the Reds. Now, granted, the NL Central I said they're doing like kind of bad. I've underestimated the NL Central a little bit. And the Brewers are 57 and 46. I mean, they would be second in the NL East and they would be second in the NL West. So the Brewers are here. And the Brewers are going to be competing. They've won 6 of 10. They have a very good record home and away, over 500 in both. What do they do? I think they need to go with an offensive bat. Maybe someone versatile. And the player I would watch for them to possibly trade for is Jeimer Candelario from the Nationals. Now, the Nationals are a very weird team, and Jeimer Candelario has actually played pretty decent. Lane Thomas, I think, is another one that possibly could be traded. Don't be surprised if you see it. If you want to think of a team to go after for him, maybe the Reds. They want to add another outfielder, but Jeimer Candelario with his versatility, we saw with the Tigers, is where we really saw his really his development arc was with the Tigers. He goes to the Nationals. He looks pretty solid this year. I think he will be traded from the Nationals? Has to be. Because I think they can get good value from him. He's having a decent season. But I think teams to watch out for him, you have to mention the Milwaukee Brewers. I think you would really want to mention the Marlins because they just did an in division trade themselves to get David Robertson. If you want to go even more crazy, maybe the Giants would want to add a versatile piece. American League teams to watch out for. Don't be surprised if the Rays maybe even want to do it because they've had underrated players with a lot of versatility before. Maybe even Baltimore. There's a lot of teams that I think will be interested in Jeimer Candelario. That's for sure. But another one that I wish bought and I don't think is going to do it is the Orioles because I want them to be good, but their ownership is just so stingy on the budget that they have that you saw it in free agency. Like imagine if this team was able to buy like some key free agents and how much better this team would be. That they would be absolutely ridiculous. But they're 62 and 40. They're a game and a half up on the Rays. And you have to imagine their buyers as well. What players do I think that they could go for? They are starting pitching. They need starting pitching. And I think Eduardo Rodriguez to Baltimore would not be out of the picture at all. Just as a possible trade idea. I mean, a left-handed starter with the rotation that Baltimore has, get out a very experienced Eduardo Rodriguez, a left-handed starter that's not really seen that much. I think that would be a very good get. But there's a lot of possibilities with this trade deadline. I'm very excited to see what pans out. Let me know in the comments or in the chat, do you want to see a MLB Trade Deadline special where I just sit here, maybe have some people on the phone and give them their thoughts, stream for like 2 hours on Monday. Actually, no, I'm not gonna be able to do that. Scratch the idea. We're not streaming on Monday. I do have work to do on Monday, so or Monday or Tuesday, whenever the deadline is. So I will not be streaming for the trade deadline. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. But yeah, let me know if you want me to do like something small, like on Sunday or something. I don't know. Just let me know if you want me to do something for the trade deadline. But enough about the trade deadline because we've already talked. It's already 20 minutes in, and I've talked enough about this. And I'm now going to talk about two. Speaking of transfers, like trades and transfers, let's head to soccer next because there's two transfers that I want to talk about right now. That one we found out about on I think 2 days ago, and then one's been really developing as of the last 24 hours. And we're going to start with the one that we found out about 2 days ago, and that is Kylian Mbappe. Now, Kylian Mbappe, last time we talked about Mbappe, he was linked to Saudi club Al Hilal, and for a possible total value transfer of 1 billion euros if all the fees were paid. And well, Mbappe rejected to meet with the Al Hilal officials after they flew to Paris, which I think is one savage because that's just a word that immediately comes to your head, but it's a DGAF moment if those who love type of terminology because Mbappe didn't want to do it. And I think the reason I think everyone has to assume now is Mbappe has to likely have a pre-agreement with Real Madrid on a free for next year. And while this isn't illegal, technically, this is really a massive problem for PSG. Like we have another club with a big issue, and I've just remembered about it, so I'll talk about that in a little bit. But the fact that Mbappe will likely now be leaving for free is a problem, and there's actually another transfer I could talk about because speaking of PSG with Mbappe possibly leaving on a free, they're interested in Ousmane Dembele from Barcelona to replace Messi on the wing. And one, I love Ousmane Dembele. He's been solid for Barcelona for the last couple of years. There's one problem with this. Dembele's release clause. Now, if PSG realistically want to get this done, they have to get it done within the next 72 hours because Dembele has a release clause currently set at 50 million and it goes to 100 million once August starts. So and these transfers usually take a little bit of time with these bigger names. So PSG's a mess. I mean, first Mbappe rejecting the move to Al Hilal, which makes sense for the player's branding as a whole because he wants to stay in Europe and he's going to sign that deal with Real Madrid, that's for sure. But at the same time, you're trying to get Ousmane Dembele and you waited that long to target Ousmane Dembele. So I don't think they're going to pay the release clause. They're probably going to negotiate a fee, probably around 50, 60 million for Ousmane Dembele. But there's another transfer that's going to be worth 60 million, and that is featuring Manchester United. And I'm going to probably butcher this name, but it's Rasmus Højlund. I think that's how you say it. He's a striker from Atalanta, and he's been linked with Manchester United. He's also been conveniently linked with PSG in case Mbappe leaves. So the battle for Højlund is going to be very interesting. Now, United today announced their bid it'll be more than a 60 million euro package, which Atalanta, I believe, is asking for 68 million, and this package with add-ons will lead to said 68 million. Do I think that this deal will be accepted? No. And the reason is PSG getting involved with this deal has hurt United more than you think it will. Like, say, and this is why I say this. If there was only one big club, say United, was interested in Huijsen, then you'd say, yep, 68 million, move on with your life. Now that there's two clubs, and PSG has a lot of money probably at their disposal, his value is going to go up, and this is really going to help out Atalanta financially because I don't believe Atalanta's in a big European competition next year. So putting those two together, profit, possibly able to buy more players that are like a Huijsen for less money is a possibility for in the future for Atalanta, but they're going to get a lot more. I think 70 plus wouldn't be off the cards, which is very big for a club like Atalanta. So they're in a very fun situation because one, they can take their time on what they want to do. But the fact that PSG and United are going to be involved and one's trying to hijack the other, this is going to get really fun. I'm very interested to see how this goes for both Man United and PSG in the saga for Huijsen. Speaking of soccer, I'm announcing in that I will be doing a Premier League prediction video. It's going to be filmed within the next couple of weeks, but it won't be posted till September because of the services that I have at my disposal right now. You won't see the edited video probably till the first week of September. I'll announce more about it because I don't think I'm going to do actual podcasts for on some days during the week due to my schedule and all that. So you'll have 3 edited videos ready to go. Probably will each be posted on probably on the Mondays episodes. So you'll have, say for example, you'll have the Premier League prediction video, then the Champions League, and the NFL season prediction. I'll probably be Prem, then NFL season, and then Champions League. There's a possibility that I could be doing Monday, Friday, Monday, and then wait for Into the Stands to start. But it's a very interesting situation. There'll be more updates on that later on. Now, there's been a lot of comments recently about NFL training camp. And you're probably asking why, Robbie? It started a week earlier this week. Why would there already be problems and concerns with NFL training and other issues with NFL training camp, if there are any? Well, there's been a lot of interesting comments said and a couple of major injuries that have happened that could raise concerns about NFL training camp as a whole. And well, while I do believe NFL training camp is done right, this injury saga is not fun. And there were 2 big injuries and a couple of comments that were said that I'm going to talk about. Now, we're going to start with the injuries because this is more controversial. And the first one is a defensive player. We'll do one defensive and one offensive player because that's the 2 big ones. We'll start with Jalen Ramsey from the Dolphins, traded from the Rams. And he got hurt and he got carted off the field after colliding with Tyreek Hill. It was during 11v11 drills. Both players fell to the ground. Ramsey sat upright before standing, and he attempted to walk, and he couldn't really walk. Some say it's likely going to be out I think it was for 6 weeks. I don't remember the full news on it, but I don't think, just expect him not to start the season. So that'll be fun. And not because I don't like Jalen Ramsey. As a Jets fan, I don't like Jalen Ramsey. You see the helmet right there. But it sucks to see a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who's very talented, go down and be hurt the way that he was and be taken out of possibly part of the season like that already. So that's already concerning. And then you see a quarterback go down, get hurt on a non-contact play, and that makes it even more problematic. And that was with Joe Burrow. Now, I was very sad when Joe Burrow went down because I like Joe Burrow. He's very good. A lot of people like Joe Burrow. Not biased at all. Joe Burrow was rolling in an 11. He was in 11v11. He took the snap, was rolling to his right. Looked like he was possibly going for a run or make a throw on the run. And then he goes down. And he's like limping and then holding his right calf and then holding his calf and then went down. And then he eventually got helped off. And sources are saying that he will likely possibly not, he'll be out for several weeks. Now, with these calf injuries, based on research, this could be a week, multiple weeks, like one more. Like the most common one, apparently, from what the sources are saying, was a grade 2 strain. So that could be possibly a month. But some of these things take a long time, like 3 months. So if this happens for over like affects the start of the season, the Bengals are kind of screwed because who's going to play quarterback for them? I don't know. I cannot name you a backup quarterback on the Bengals. I don't know if Ryan Finley's still there. And they have probably some weird options that no one really thinks about, but could they be possibly going after a free agent quarterback like a Carson Wentz? Could they trade for somebody? Very interesting situation with the Bengals. And it's really weird to see the injuries like this start. But no, what was weirder? Some particular comments by a head coach. And this raises two red flags for me. And it was Sean Payton towards Nathaniel Hackett. So I'll read to you what ESPN wrote. Broncos coach Sean Payton has said he doesn't want his team to look into the rearview mirror, but Payton took a long gaze back in an interview Wednesday with USA Today Sports. Payton called the work Nathaniel Hackett and his staff did with the 2022 Broncos one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL and said there were 20 dirty hands around Russell Wilson's career worst season that included just 16 touchdowns and a league high 55 sacks. Crap. Now, this is why I say that. And well, while I do think Sean Payton's a very good coach, there's no reason that you should. There's a reason that he made these comments. I think it's weird that he did it the way that he did it because it raises the concern of why Russell Wilson was bad. Having 20 dirty hands on the quarterback is bad because what I would love, and this is why I like how teams develop quarterbacks, and Joe Burrow is a good example of this. So Joe Burrow can effectively do whatever he wants on the field. Like he can go out, usually roll to his left or his right. He can go for a quick run. He can and slide and get some yards. He can go out and make easier throws. He can gun one down the field 50 yards if he wanted to. He's just that guy. And the fact that you have these many like personnel around Russell Wilson that want to change what he's doing, why the hell do you want to do that in the first place? It's Russell Wilson. He's really good. Like, this is like a rookie quarterback, I'm like, fine. It's Russell Wilson. The dude won a Super Bowl. Why the hell did this even happen in the first place? No wonder he had a bad year. Because he wasn't probably comfortable with hacking in the system that he was in. Do you want me to name some weapons around him? Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. That's pretty solid already. And some other depth pieces. KJ Hamler. That's another one. How the heck could this happen? And this is on Denver especially. This is on the higher ups of Denver now. Because you let this happen, and it's a whole mess. But now this raises a concern for another team, that's the Jets, because one, it's really questions how if this really happened with Aaron Rodgers. Because if Hackett did this as a head coach, did he do this as an offensive coordinator? No, I don't think so. Because LaFleur in Green Bay wouldn't probably let this happen. But it raises that concern that what happened with Rodgers and Hackett? Was Hackett doing all these things behind the scenes to affect Rodgers' play? That's a question that you have to ask coming from these comments. It's a very weird start to training camp. One that I didn't see, that's for sure. First, the injuries, and then coaches calling out each other. Welcome to the NFL 2023, where chaos and incarnate will be everywhere, probably for the next 4 months. Buckle your seatbelts. This is going to be fun. But I think you'll have to wait in your seats for a little bit because we got a couple more weeks till the NFL season starts. We got about 5 weeks. But next Thursday is actually the Hall of Fame game, so should I stream the Hall of Fame game? That's the question, but don't think so. 2 topics to go, and we're gonna head to the links next. And now on Monday, I talked about the qualifiers and the Gold Cup again for like the 17 millionth time, it felt like. And I didn't get a chance to talk about the Open in depth more. So let me do that for you real quick. So on last Friday, a week ago, I talked about the situation that Brian Harmon was in. Yeah, he somehow had a 5-shot lead over the rest of the field. And you got to give the dude credit. He held on and battled the elements, shot 13 under, won by 6. One of the biggest open wins we've seen in a long time. I mean, Brian Harmon's been in I mentioned him being in the mix before it opens, but not being able to get it done. But I would like to really compare him in this type of situation to Tommy Fleetwood before he won the tournament because they've both been in contention at opens before and were not able to get it done. This one erases Harmon's concern because he goes out and shoots 100 in the final round on a windy, rainy final round. He's able to battle the elements, do it better than everyone else, goes out and wins the Claret Jug for the in the 100. I believe it was 151st Open at Royal Liverpool. So good for Brian Harmon. He had a phenomenal last 2 days. That even though he only shot 3 under, people don't understand how much 3 under can change your Open and put you into contention or hold on to your lead. So briefly, I'm going to go into how my sleepers and other picks went. The fourth place out of the 4 picks that I had was a sleeper in Robert McIntyre, who shot +10, finished tied for 71st. Granted, he's young. I think he's a lot of room to grow still. I mean, you'll see was in contention in Scotland. That's the only reason that I put him into the mix in the first place. So I think he's still very young. He will be in the mix in opens and other majors in the future. Don't be surprised one day if he will win an Open or a US Open for how good he is in those types of roughs. So that's one of the player to watch out for in the future. But the other sleeper was Danny Willett, and he's finished tied for 68th. So not off to a very hot start. But then you really go down the list, and you will find yourselves, I guess got to find him, in 23rd, Jordan Spieth. Now, Jordan finished the week at even par, which is tied for 23rd. So I'm getting better. But the big one, and I'm not shocked by it, was Tommy Fleetwood, who finished in the top 10, finishing at -4, which is not bad considering the situation that all the players were in. I mean, he shot 1 over 70, I believe it was 1 over 73 to finish the tournament. I don't remember what the par to this course was, but Tommy Fleetwood had a very solid week. He's put himself in major contention again. So Tommy Fleetwood, I thought, had a pretty solid week. A lot of players had solid weeks. Some underrated names that had a very good week that we really didn't get to talk about. Sepp Straka, a big name on the European Tour from Austria. He finished in second. You have Tom Kim, who I think is major, could be a major contender. Maybe could win a major one day, that's for sure. You had a former PGA champion in Jason Day finishing second. Of course, you have John Rahm finishing in second. You had Rory McIlroy finish at 6 under and tied for 6th. And then you go up to some names that people haven't really heard of before. You have Matt Jordan, the Englishman, who finished in the top 10, tied for 10th. You have Shubhankar Sharma. Shubhankar Sharma. There you go. He had, I believe, the only bogey-free final round. I don't know if that's right, but I remember hearing something along those lines. You had Sunjay Im was in the top 20. Terrell Hatton was in the top 20. That's a name a couple of people know. You had this one I was really sad about because I liked this one player and no one's really heard of him before. And he kind of put his name on the map and then fell apart on the final round. That's Nikolai Højgaard from Denmark. He is on the European tour. His brother Rasmus has won multiple tournaments. I believe Nikolai's either won one or has been in contention at multiple. So Nikolai and Rasmus have both been good. Nikolai finished in the top 25 here, so good for him. He had a solid week. He finished at even par as well. You shot 3 over in the final round. That's why I'm really mentioning his name. But there's a lot of solid names that were in this tournament and that really made a noise for themselves. And it was really great to see. To your concluding topic of the evening, we have F1. Now, last week I didn't talk about F1 because I was on the Starting Grid podcast. I was on 2 podcast episodes with them, with the guys from the Starting Grid. And today we get to talk about Belgium. Now, qualifying happened today, which one I didn't know about till I think, I don't know, an hour before the race, an hour before qualifying started. And you have to love the feeling that one, you're hoping that this wasn't Belgium 2021 again. Now, for those who didn't watch Formula One, that's probably most of my viewers. Belgium 2021, I believe they had a total of 3 laps in the actual race due to how much rain happened. Like, imagine if you saw the weather from New York last night times like 50. That was Belgium 2021 in a nutshell. But we had rain in FP1. Then we had qualifying. Tomorrow will be the sprint shootout, which is like qualifying for the sprint race. Then we have the sprint race tomorrow at 10:30, which that should be very interesting. I'm very interested to see how some of these cars pan out in the sprint. But let's go over the order for the race on Sunday. Now, there wasn't really that many shockers this time as you would think. Now, granted, Max finished P1. I just have to mention this now. He has a 5 place grid penalty, so he'll start P6 for impeding the max limit amount of parts you can have. Like at the start of the season, you can get more parts, of course. But you just take grid penalties. So it's a gearbox issue, and he got 5 place grid penalty, so he had the repairs before the qualifying started. So he has a 5 place grid penalty. So the order from top to bottom will be like this: Charles Leclerc is on pole in Belgium again, or it's a Ferrari back to back. This is the better way to put it. Ferrari has pole at Belgium for at Spa for the second year in a row. Carlos Sainz had it last year, did not win the race. So it would be Leclerc from Sergio Perez on the front row. Then we have Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz. Then we have Piastri and Max. And then we'll have Lando Norris and George Russell. And then the 2 Aston Martins finish out the top 10. We had the stunner of Yuki Tsunoda in P11. Now, the reason he was up there, and I thought this was hilarious, was because the track dried up just enough and just in time for the drivers to go to slicks, to go to the soft tire before Q2 ended. Because Yuki was P1 in Q2 for about 2 minutes, and no one knew what was going on. And then he did it on the soft tire. So, I believe it was on the soft tire. So then everyone goes soft, and then, well, the times prove it to you from there. And Max Verstappen, who's actually P10 in Q2, got through on by 2 tenths over Sonoda. So it'll be Sonoda and Pierre Gasly, the 2 former AlphaTauri teammates. Then we have Kevin Magnussen, who I believe should have gotten a grid penalty for this race, but do what you will with that information. Followed by Valtteri Bottas, Esteban Ocon, and Alex Albon, Zhou Guan Yu and Sargent, and then Daniel Ricciardo and Nico Hulkenberg. Now, Hulkenberg had a hydraulics issue, so that's why he is in 20th. Danny Rick was sad because he got P6, and everyone was going crazy, and then he got the lap deleted for track limits, which was sad and harsh. Not really. He had 4 wheels off the track, which for those that don't know, if in qualifying, if you do that, you do get your lap time deleted. So he went from 6th back to 19th, and so he will start from the last row on the grid. So don't expect much from AlphaTauri this week. But all things considered, who I'll start doing this now because this is what I did at starting grid. So what is my projected podium for Sunday? And we'll start from the bottom. In P3. Now, I had a lot of options. I had 5 drivers in the mix for this. P3. And this is because he's had experience in unpredictable. I guess is the way you can word it. P3 will be, it's going to be Piastri. He's going to get his first podium. I really think this is possible because he looked so good in the wet tires and he looked really good in the middle sector, better than most drivers. I think he had the second best sector 2 time, which is the really long part, only behind Max. So if he could put a full good 44 laps together on Sunday, then don't be surprised if Piastri is on the podium. P2 is going to be Sergio Perez. And this is because Red Bull's absolutely crazy. There's no need to comment on that. And then this is only if this is not that much. If it's not raining, Max is going to win. If there is rain, I do think Leclerc it'll be Leclerc. I think maybe Hamilton can make a move in the rain. He's done it in the rain before. This is very similar to, I'm really thinking this is like Turkey 2021 when Lewis Turkey 2020 when he won the title. When Lewis won his 7th world title, how unpredictable that race was. That's the only comparison I'm really thinking of. But I think this race will be very unpredictable. But if it's all slicks, it's going to be Max, then Perez, and then possibly Piastri. So there's a lot to watch out for. Remember, tomorrow's the sprint shootout, which is at, unfortunately, 5 in the morning. I don't think anyone's going to want to watch that. And then we have the sprint at 10:30. So make sure if you want to watch that, I believe that'll be on ESPN tomorrow. But that's going to be all the time I have for today. The topics include, and we'll go over this again, MLB Trade Deadline, NFL training camps, soccer transfer news. We had the Open, Formula One, and Monday we'll possibly go over what has happened at the trade deadline, if it's concluded. There's a lot more to talk about, but I'll see you guys to that on Monday. But for now, I'm Robbie Basel, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Good night, everyone.